Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Mourning Tea. Guys, I have someone so special on with me today. Her name is Yovanka. We're basically like business sisters, is the best way to put it. And she's from Australia, so you get to hear a really nice accent for this entire podcast.
I
Welcome,
know
Yovanka.
we probably need subtitles so people can understand, right?
No, it's perfect. And I love it. I'm obsessed with the part of TikTok that always says "nar" instead of no.
No, I know. When I hear it back, I'm like, do we actually really sound like that? I'm like, that's embarrassing.
I can't get enough of it, and I love it. So, Yovanka, tell them a little bit about yourself, how we met, all the things, because I feel like today's episode might be a little bit spicy.
It's a little bit spicy, but thank you. I'm so excited to be on here. I absolutely adore you, and I think it's also fitting that I get to be on your podcast after all these years of, I've always said that I've never followed like celebrities. Even when I was younger, I was like really weird. I never, to this day, everyone's like so obsessed with celebrities, and I
Yeah.
was never, I was never like that. I was always built different. And it was so funny when I first started this journey. You were one of the few people that really, really inspired me. And I always say, I probably wouldn't even be in this position if it wasn't for you. Because when you were on the podcast and listening to you and watching you, at that point when I was just a little girl back home in Adelaide, trying this out for myself because I couldn't get access to what you guys were doing or the hair, you really were my inspiration. So I think it's quite fitting and fabulous. And I think this is a big part of why we want to share our story as well, how things can come full circle.
Yeah.
And I think we all like to little bitch and moan about social media, but there's so many great things that have come from it, and this is one of those great things.
Yeah.
So I thank you, and I thank you for having me on. So
I'm like honored to have you here. And guys, so here's like a crazy thing. So the reason I say Yovanka and I are like business sisters, so we both have a hairline and we actually share a factory. And I feel like people hear that and they're like, what do you mean? Because I didn't realize until you told me that hair factories are, it's like fucking Fight Club. No one talks about it. No one says where they're at. No, they'll tell you the general country and that's it. It's crazy.
it's so crazy. And once we get into it and shed a little bit more light on it, but I think I'll just go back and explain how I started and how I got into
Yeah.
it. So I've always, ever since I was young, like I was that typical 5-year-old. I was obsessed with hair. I'm still obsessed with hair. Still feel like a rookie. I've been in it for 30 something years. Don't want to say for how long. But yeah, when I was 12 years old, I started my apprenticeship, and I always worked for high-end salons. And when I was in my 20s, I went to go work in LA and New York, and that's where I
Wow.
first came across hand-tied hair when I was working in a salon over there. And back then, it was like the African girls doing the hand-tied hair, but they were doing it on corn braids. And
Wow.
I was pretty much, I could do anything in hair, but I couldn't corn braid. And I was like, fuck that. I was like, this looks good to me, but I kind of put it on the shelf, when you're not ready for something.
Yep.
But I remember looking at it, and I remember being so intrigued by it. But at that point, I was pretty much doing every other method under the sun, but I hadn't tapped in to weft extensions. They weren't really a big thing here. So when I came back home, fell in love with my amazing husband, had a couple of kids, and then you guys popped on the scene, and I started to watch what you girls were doing. And there was probably like 3 of you that really inspired me, and you were like one of my biggest, and I resonated with you so much. As you can see, you're real. There's no bullshit about you. And I was like, I like this girl. I like what she's doing. But I couldn't get access to the hair, and I couldn't get access to the training over there. I did want to go over there, but it was so weird. And we'll touch on, the weird vibes even back then when I reached out to the brand that you're working with. And I didn't even know what the fuck I was saying, but I was like, look, I know that I'm going to have my own brand one day, because I couldn't keep shipping at that time what I thought hair to from America to Australia. It wasn't feasible. Like the
Yeah.
shipping back then was crazy. And when I saw you guys doing it, it made sense to me. But obviously, with that came a whole different experience of sourcing hair, and then learning about methods, because I think that's what we're gonna. There's so many areas. What we're gonna touch on today is like the methods
Yeah.
versus the
Well, I
hair.
think there's so much contention. And one thing that I have found so interesting working with you is that in my mind, the culture of extensions in America, my assumption was that's just it everywhere, and it's not.
It's not.
Every country and every continent has its own kind of like
Mm,
culture around extensions. And that's one thing I definitely want to talk about today is kind of like the differences between America and Australia, because
mm,
it is very different, not only in the hair that's used, the methods, the contracts, the NDAs, the litigation, the community around it. It is so different. And while America is like, honestly, it's a huge industry here. Extensions are fucking massive. It's also probably the scariest one. Like, I can't think of another country that is scarier than America, probably because, I mean, we've said it, America's a very litigious country. And I
mm.
think that that's hindering our entire industry more than it is helping it now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think also, looking in, like we've always never had the like, and I have to say it, like looking in, it always seemed very like culty vibes, and that's probably a few questions that I would ask you. We just don't really like. Don't get me wrong, we have our own problems here. We really, really do. I don't think anywhere's perfect,
No way.
but we definitely don't have the contention of what's happening in America. And I think also thanks to you guys, you fucking put extensions on the map in a big way. That wasn't because back then, when I first introduced it here, that was an era where stylists couldn't stand behind extensions, and it was a lot of makeup artists, and it was a lot of non-qualified hairdressers that were promoting us. So when we first came on the scene as well, we were the first ones to come on because we couldn't get hand-tied hair in Australia. It was like, who does this bitch think she is charging this? Because back then tapes had really reduced the price down. People were paying
Yeah.
$800-900 for a set of extensions. Because back when I first started, when I was young, and even when I was really young in the industry, I remember my parents paying for my first set of extensions, and they were monofiber extensions, and they were like 1,500 back then. So back in the day, extensions were so expensive back in the day. Do you know what I mean? And then fast forward, they just got obliterated by these tapes. I feel like they lowered the standard, and then you guys, like I said, came on the scene with this amazing product and really elevated the industry and really elevated the standard of hair. And then it seemed like it all turned to shit for a bit.
And I think that's really the hard part. So one thing to also say, one of the things that I think makes it mine and Yovanka's like business, friendship, relationship, all this so unique is, like I already said, we share a factory, but we actually don't even do the same type of hair. Yovanka does all genius wefts. I do only hand tied. So it's also like very cool getting to work with someone, because I'll tell you guys, when I started this whole journey, I cried so much. I will never forget sitting down with Yovanka and being like, so how often do I have to put an order in? Once a quarter? Once every 6 months? Like, how much are we looking at? 10 grand, whatever. And I remember her and her husband kind of looked at each other and they were like, every 6 weeks. And we're talking six figures every 6 weeks at minimum, guys. And I remember being like, my voice got so high pitched. I was pretty sure only dogs could hear it. I remember walking back to my hotel room, calling my fiance, crying, being like, can I do this? Because I'm not sure if I'm capable of this. And he was like, you're literally capable of anything. And I'm like, you're right, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I'm so glad I did. And I know you're going to resonate with this, because I feel like I'm one of those people. If I see a problem, it's so hard to sit back and wish that someone else would fix it. I'm one of
Cool.
those people like, screw it. If I can, even if that puts me in hot water, if I'm in the hot seat, if I have a little more stress and pressure or whatever, like, I'm still going to do it. Fuck it. And that's really where like morning hair came from, was honestly just kind of like this sucks and I can make it better. So let's do this, girl.
Let's do it. And it's funny because when I first started as well, I think I was one of the first ones here in Australia to really change the narrative of not bullshitting clients or ourselves or the industry, because I was given the advice as well to maybe mislabel my hair and call it European hair, call it Russian hair, call it Slavic hair. And once I started to learn about the hair, and I was like, oh my God, we're all being, I felt lied to, like you. I was like, this is not European hair. This is not Slavic hair. Show me. If it is, show me where it's coming from.
Mhm.
So the more I started researching, the more I started getting into it, I was like, oh my God, we're all being lied to. It's either Indian or Asian hair. Once we get into it as well, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah,
I
we can
feel
talk
like
about it. Fine, go ahead.
even in America now, people realize that there's no such thing as Russian hair, right?
I think they're starting to because, and that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, can Russian hair be a thing? Yes, but it is incredibly expensive. We're
Exactly.
talking hundreds of dollars a weft. We're not
Exactly.
talking, just a pack. Like it's crazy.
It's crazy, and it's called more like I believe there's virgin hair, and there's a couple of girls in Australia who buy hair or there's a company in Melbourne which I shared to you. They literally have come from London and they make their own wefts, but they buy the hair in bundles of
Mhm.
ponytails, and you can literally see they show you it's in like a bundle, and they pull the hair out and they weave it. And these clients are paying 6, 7, maybe 8,000, and that's the industry standard for what did I say, for like virgin hair.
Yeah.
But mainstream hair, what brands are making, in order to be able to sustain requirements from factory, there's no such thing as Slavic hair. And I don't even like, I stopped blaming, well, I didn't even blame the brands at that point. I'm like, this is just being passed down,
Yeah.
because I think it was labeled in marketing so that it didn't sound, it sounded nicer saying it was Russian or Slavic. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But the reality is it's either Indian or Asian hair. But then it makes sense, because factory can say, I've got Asian hair, it's high grade hair, but it's also how they process their hair. Where do they collect their hair from? There's so many different moving parts to it as well that, will dictate the quality of hair. And most brands will not spend the money that we decided to spend, because we made a decision. I was like, I'm not compromising. That's why it's probably going to take us a lot longer to get to where we want to get. And we would rather not make the sale unless we're getting that top grade hair,
Yeah.
and it's costing us more, but we're not blowing it out to mainstream, because these brands that we've been accustomed to, if you have a look at all the brands, they're pretty much promoting clip-in range. They have like the whole standard of hair, which is also tape-ins,
Yeah.
individuals. Like, they're offering everything. They're also B2C, which is business to consumer. They're offering it to, and they're also offering it B2B. So they have a broader range, and they have different budgets to what someone like that's, because we're the micro brands that are doing it more, I feel like, with integrity. So it's going to take us a lot harder to reach.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's not even like if there are brands that you want to do everything, fuck it, do everything. Like, I'm in full support of you. I feel like, honestly, the only problem that I start having, or when I start having a problem, is because in my mind, so I'll say, like, first, I have a hard time lying. Like, even like half truths to me are very difficult because a half truth is still half a lie. Like, and to me, if you're omitting something on purpose, like, that it's wrong and you like shouldn't be doing it. And so those are things that I really didn't even realize happened in the hair world. Like, it was, ABC hair companies, there's different like grades that they're selling you, but they're not telling you they're different grades. At least some
Mm-hmm.
companies don't. And when I started hearing that, I'm like, that sucks, because I've worked with thousands of artists and I understand the stress of wanting to have something that is such great quality, being scared to dive into extensions because it is riskier. Like, it's a scary thing to do. Education, at least in the United States, it's absolutely fucking outrageous. Like, the price
Mm-hmm.
of education
That's
here,
crazy.
if you're lucky, you are only paying $2,500. If you're unlucky, you're paying $5, $6, $15,000, which, like, hey, I support you. Get your bag, get your money. Like, I'm in full support of like the entrepreneurial spirit. But then now my issue comes with that is you're being lied to about the hair. You're not getting the quality that you think you're getting. You spent a car's worth of money for this education, and now you're sitting there stressed to the fucking nines, wondering if this is going to work. And I feel like there has to be a better way. At
For
least I
sure.
know, like, yeah, with what we do, that's why at least if we can control the quality of the hair, and that's things like, do I know that I should probably be charging more per weft? Yeah. Am I going to? Not right now. I would rather and I know this is not like a smart business decision, but suck it, whatever. I would rather make less profit and be able to help more people than get like money hungry or greedy. Not to say other brands are, I'm just talking about myself, but like that is why like I feel so passionate and probably incredibly frustrated a lot of days when I see things that are happening, because at least here in America, like to jump on extension methods for a second, my God, oh, sweet baby. Not only are you paying a car's worth of money, and I mean literally, then the contracts you're signing have you fucking scared to even promote what you're doing. Because if you show too much because it's proprietary or whatever, now it's cease and desist, you're going to be sued. And it's so much bullshit that it's like, I just paid you so much money and I can't even promote it how I want.
It's funny because that's where I resonated with you and what you were going through as well. Because my whole career, since I was very young in this industry, every single company that I worked for, actually, I won't say every single, there was probably one or two that it was fine, but pretty much all the companies that I was attracted to, because on the outside they promised these amazing things and they looked like they could offer you all these opportunities. Once you got involved with them, you very realized that it was abusive leadership. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something that I want to touch on with you. Like, how do people spot the red flags as
Yeah.
well? Because on the onset, they promise you all these things, and I think that's why you and I have always just stayed in our lane, and we've always just cruised along, and we don't, put our nose in those type of things. And like you say, we're probably going to take us a lot longer to get to where we want, but just because we're both scarred from that situation, how do other people going into because this is probably a lot more fresher in your mind, because I've distanced myself a long time from that. But how would you make the distinction of someone to spot the red flags of what makes?
Yeah. And I want to be clear before I say all this, because people are going to be like, oh my God, she's calling out brands. No, I'm not. If I say something and you feel like I'm talking about you with respect, that's your problem, not mine. And I know that sounds like so harsh to say, but I know 5 weft methods. And then I also know tape-ins, I know beaded, I know K-tips, I know a lot of methods. And I've
You've
only
been
been doing,
around the way for a long time.
bitch, I've been around the block.
You've been around the block.
And I've been doing hair for 15 years. That's a lot of methods to learn. And I feel like technically a short time, even though 15 years is enough. So for me at the stage that I'm at, so let me just talk about myself instead of other people. Here are the things that I'm now looking for, because I don't, NDAs of being like, hey, don't teach my shit. I'm actually not super bothered by that, because I understand, because if I create something, I teach it to Sally teaches it to 7 people, they teach it to 7 more. If you're not used to educating or you're not familiar with the method, that can dilute what you're doing. And then if all of a sudden you learned it from someone who learned it from someone who learned it from someone, and you're saying, well, I do Ani's method and it's trash, well, that sucks for me because I never taught it to you. You know what I mean? For me, it's now, I feel like a big red flag that has like, I call like my spidey sense starts tingling. What is or is not allowed on social media? That for me already can make or break if I do something with a brand, because if you're telling me that not only can I can't show it, which okay, to an extent, I can't teach it, that's fine. But now, like, if I'm putting a bead on, I'm going to get in trouble. If I show my hands while I'm stitching, you're going to send me a fucking cease and desist. So now not only can I not market myself how I want, now I have to be extra careful because I'm not trying to get sued on top of it. And I think what irritates me the most is I can guarantee if we backtrack, everyone right now who says they're patent pending or have a patent or whatever, they didn't make up the shit that they claim they made up anyway.
Everyone's learned it from somewhere.
They absolutely learned it from somewhere. Even like knots that I see, people are like, this is my special knot. I'm like, that's a normal knot when you're sewing clothing. Or when you're sewing like heavier textiles. Like, that wasn't actually yours to take and say, I made this. And I think that's where like my problems start coming in, where I'm like, you're taking something that is common knowledge, given maybe you don't know how to sew clothes, but I do. And so these things can be and are common knowledge, but now you're claiming it as your own. So even if I have my own idea, fuck you, you're going to come after me. That's crazy. So
And it's funny because the more stylists that I've been speaking to in America as well, I don't even think it's the issue. I don't even think people are worried about the NDAs not being able to teach her. I think it's just the politics of what you're saying, the politics that are involved, and the misleading, and exactly what you're saying, where it just turns passive aggressive or aggressive in some situations. And
Yeah.
like, where does it end? Like, where does it really end?
Well, what I think is so crazy is because I've even heard of this where it's like, let's say you learn my method, and then
Mm,
you're like, that was so great. I loved it. I just want to learn another one. Then you learn another one, and all of a sudden I'm like, fuck you, Yovanka. You're dead to me. How dare you learn a competitor? What?
mm,
So now, because I paid you, you also hate me because I wanted to learn more from someone else. And I know I said before, like, there other points in my life, I have been like, collaboration over competition is stupid. Come up with your own idea. I take that all back. There's a limit. There is a limit, I think, to like what people own. And I know for a fact, like, I know there are some methods out there that are essentially like crowdsourced. Like, it wasn't made by one person, it was made by multiple people. But
mhm,
then all of a sudden, one person said, "My," and
mm.
called dibs and ran
They
with
just packaged it up and
it.
made. I guess they're turning it into a business model to sell it, to stand out. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
and that's fine. But then you can't shit on the people who helped you make it. You didn't make it on all on your own. You didn't
Mm,
pay them to help you make it. And these are the things that I'm now like hearing. And I think what makes me so, and I don't even want to say angry, but honestly, it makes me so mad is their stylists are scared. And I know
mm,
they're scared because they fucking tell me privately in my DMs. And they're like, I'm so like, I want to learn this method, but I'm literally afraid because of this reason. Or I already
mm.
learned XYZ. And now if I learn that one, I'm scared of that. And I think that those are things that we should be listening to. I feel
100.
like people
They're
don't,
feeling trapped.
yes. And people might openly say it, but there are whispers all around. And those whispers, like, there comes a point where if enough people say the same thing, there
I
might
think
be
there
like
needs to be definitely it needs to be we need to speak about it to bring awareness because without awareness there cannot be change.
absolutely. And look, like, once again, I know there's a ton of lawsuits happening in America right now from brand to brand. Like,
That's why
there's
when I came into America, I'm like, you fucking Americans scare me. Everyone is suing everyone over there. Like, just make sure you keep it real with me. We're not going to go into litigation. Like, that's not who we are. We're not going to do that. That's why, I'm very, like you, very, very selective because when they start throwing around the litigation or the
yeah,
NDAs, or even when you build relationships with someone, like, I know there's a fine line and I know it's there for people that really don't do the right thing, but when you are working with people who do the right thing, it's a simple phone call, have a simple conversation. It's really, really not that difficult. That's why it's so interesting hearing you say that because, in Australia, we have like all of Australia has 26 million. And in California, you guys have 39 million.
yeah, I'm like, that's it,
Now,
26
when
million.
you guys are like fighting and you guys are, I'm like, oh my God, it's like absurd to us because we're not even doing that here. Brands, like I said, there's problems here, and I'll share what the problems are here, what's happening here. But when you look at the sizing of what California has as opposed to Australia, I'm like, if we can get our shit together and find some medium happy ground, I'm sure we can get back on track as a global. Do you know what I mean? There's enough room.
Absolutely.
Really, really, I do really, really believe that. I really do believe there's enough room for everyone. But the problems that we're having here with, I guess, brands and stylists, and maybe that stylists aren't aware of, how brands are protecting or they're trying to build their business is that they're offering stylists mega bucks or influencers, a lot more money to support their brand. And it's also, like I always say, what's really dangerous is when stylists um, relate their self-worth to their income. And I think that's what's happened a lot because what's happened with that's where I believe it's gone a little bit convoluted because I know I've lost out on brand deals because these bigger brands have come in who have been around 15, 20 years above me, and they've offered these influencers money that I can't even compete with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So then there's always that integrity. What I said to you the other day, there's, income, impact, and integrity. And if they're associating their self-worth to the income that they're, receiving from these companies, what what standing do these micro brands have like us that are being bought out by these big brands? And I don't have an issue with that because now I'm in business, I understand it. And do you know, when I first had to tap into that, when I was going to my stylist who have been with me for 5 years, and I was asking them, hey guys, is there anything that I can do extra to support you? And they were the ones that came to me, were like, how about if you offered an ambassador agreement, an ambassador contract? And I quickly learned that this is what brands were doing, is that they were giving discounts to, brands that were supporting them. And I support that because that's showing loyalty,
Mhm.
right? To me, if they're being loyal to you, you're obviously going to offer them an exclusive agreement if they're happy to stay with you. But it's only if they're happy with your product. What I
Yeah.
think is happening in America, which I've heard as well from other stylists, is that these big brands, their stylists are coming out of training that have only had 3 months experience, and these brands are already offering them a contract
Wow.
to remain exclusive to that brand. But it's like that stylist that's come out that hasn't even had the opportunity to explore other brands, how do they know what brand they want to, make alliances with or be
Yeah.
exclusive with? So with that, it almost is a little bit of a gray area for me, because I'm like, oh, is that business or is that a little bit of manipulation? And is
Yeah.
that a little bit of a forcing hand that you own the market share because the ones with the deepest pockets seems to be winning in this game?
And it's so crazy that you say this because I spoke to someone who is a very large following. Like they're pretty well known in the hair industry, and they had told me that another brand, I'm not going to say which brand, but a brand had offered them a deal when they first like opened and began. And this stylist, she said, she was like, "Oh, well, she was like, I don't even really think the products work, but I really wish like I'd taken that contract because like I would have made so much money." And that kind of like, I was kind of like, "Oh, wait, that I
It just
can't
doesn't align.
imagine." Yeah,
Mm,
like I can't imagine aligning myself with anything or anyone that I did not genuinely believe in. That being said, you can believe in something and change your mind. You cannot believe in something and change your mind. I think people change, companies change, and everyone is entitled to honestly like flip flop however many times you want. But I think to say, I literally say like, I don't think this product works. I don't literally like, I don't believe in this type of product, but I wish
mm.
I would have taken the deal. I'm just like, but you, okay. I think that's odd. I think that's weird.
I think it's weird too, and this is why I always say I was always, cut from a different cloth. And I remember people, even my husband, when we first met, he was like, you can, you can always, you can buy people. People can be bought, and I'll be like, I could never be bought, and I really, to this day, will not be bought. Like, in saying that, I've lost brand deals with big influencers who are now supporting other brands, but I honestly know in my gut that that product is not good.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? As whereas someone like me, even when I was younger, I would go more for the smaller, maybe brand or something that I genuinely believed in, and then I would, build it back up. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I just feel like this is where it gets convoluted again, because everyone's situation is different. We don't know what position that person is. I know a lot of people are carrying debt, and a lot of what is built on social media makes it look like they're doing amazing, but the reality is they could be in a position where they have to, in their mind, work with a product because they're getting paid more, but they're out of alignment with their integrity.
Yeah. But
So,
you know what? Like something I also think is like I know for me, I place a lot of value in people and the relationships and knowing that like when I go to bed, I sleep like a baby. My morals and my integrity, they are intact, they are in alignment. And I feel like because I have that expectation for myself, I have then put that expectation on other people. And that has led me to be disappointed so many times because realistically, not everybody has the same values. And if someone's values are different, they are not wrong. I am not right. They're not right. I'm not wrong. But I
right.
do know that for some people, they don't give a fuck about
Mm,
anything except money.
exactly.
Do I fully understand that? Honestly, I don't because to me, it's just kind of like opposite of how I feel about pretty much how I run every business I own. But
Mm.
I also sometimes just have to take a step back and be like, if that for them feels like integrity, or maybe they don't even, some people might not even think about it.
It's
They might,
not a subconscious thing that they're even aware of it. for sure.
There wasn't even a fucking thought. They said, Yovanka will pay me this much money to post. Yeah, her product is fine. Whatever. Fuck it. I'll post. Like, that's what's so. And I used your name to not call out other names, just to be clear. Yeah. Can you imagine I start naming names? I'm not doing that here. No, I don't need to be blacklisted. So, like, that is just something that I've had to really, really focus on doing that. And that has meant with business partnerships, that's been with friendships, that's been with bosses, with clients, that just because I have that standard for myself, I cannot hold others to that same standard. They have their own version of like integrity, but that also means I can choose whether I'd be a part of it or not.
Exactly. And I think in the beginning as well, I used to get really disappointed when I would see someone switching to another brand. But the more I got invested in honestly, like the more I invested in myself and what I was doing and what I believed in, you kind of block out that noise. And then, eventually 5 years in, and I think also we have an advantage to maybe other brands because we're working stylists. So we knew what the fuck we were talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I believed in it, and you've worked with our product now, you've seen it, like there was no going back. I was like, I believe in this so much. I'm so passionate about it. If someone doesn't believe in it, or they're, underselling themselves or undercutting corners, or I don't even take it personal anymore. I'm like, oh, that's so sad for them. So sad. Do you know what I mean? So you don't take it personal.
No,
but
that's the decision you made. That's cool. It's fine.
I think you and I are excited as well because we're going to be, bringing something to the US market as well, something that we're not ready to divulge yet exactly because you're going to be releasing it soon. But I think what we've, come together to realize is I think everyone's going to be super happy about what we've got, what plans we've got cooking up.
I will say, let me see, what can I say about this? I will say this. I listen to everything stylists tell me. And I don't mean like I hear it. I mean, I actually listen. It's like I almost said a Rolodex. How old am I? Like 1,000? It's like I have a computer file in my head and I just remember everything that stylists say to me and every problem they have, especially when it comes to them being afraid, to them being stressed out, to them feeling like they can't make the money they want for whatever reason. And if anyone knows me, if you're listening, you probably know me. You know that like I don't fuck around. Like if I'm doing something, this is a phrase we say here all the time, like you got to put your whole pussy in it. Like you guys
I haven't heard that one.
we say that here all the time. You got to put your whole in it. I won't keep saying the word, but like that, anyone who knows me knows like I don't fuck around. And if
and another one that I love what you say as well, I don't want anybody riding my dick. That's the best one. With what we've got, no one's going to be riding your dick.
No, get off my ass. Don't ride my dick. I'm putting my whole pussy in it. I'm doing all the words right now. But this is something that Yovanka and I have talked in length about. It has been hours worth of conversations. I've talked to my business coach about it and how this solves a huge problem that I think the entire extension industry is having. And I don't really care which continent you're in. It doesn't matter. This is solving a problem because you guys know, like, that is my ultimate goal. Like, money for me will always come second because the impact that we can have, that matters the most to me. And so like the announcement will probably be coming out by the time you guys are hearing this in like a week or so, something like that. I'm very like, I want to throw up and I'm not going to lie. I've been giggling about it for days. And I feel like that's when I know I'm onto something, when I'm sitting there going,
we definitely are onto something. And I think this is the very reason of why we got in. I know when I first got into it, it was never, my thought was never, I'm going to do this to make money. I was like, how can I change the industry? How can I make an impact for my clients? And that's always been the forefront. When you first came on, I was like, Ani, if you think you're going to be doing this because you're going to be making millions, it's not how it works. And once we go in, because I think there's a massive, massive problem with hair quality, which we're going to speak on as well. But I think that is the biggest thing that I feel like all the politics is being, the focus needs to go back to why we're doing this. And that's really the amazing experience that, like the transformations that we have for our clients. And I don't ever want that to be forgotten.
No, to me, that always stays it's like the forefront of my mind of like, what problem am I solving? How can I help people? And I think what also helps, probably the fact that like we're doing this, and like I can speak for myself. I'm small, but I'm a tough cookie. Like I have a pretty tough exterior. Not a lot of shit really bothers me. And I feel like throughout the years, it's almost like I've taken so many hits over God knows what at this point, that now when I hear shit, I'm like, whatever. I don't care. It bounces off me because I think I have the strength to stand up and say, this is wrong, and I'm not going to tolerate it, and I'm going to do something to change it. And if that upsets you, that's a you problem, baby. That's not a me problem. Even like coming down to hair quality, man. I spoke to someone recently, and they were telling me that there's this line that they use in particular, and they've been using this line for a while, and all of a sudden the hair, like something was wrong. And here's the deal. I am not going to throw shade at any hair company for having a bad batch of hair. It can happen to literally anybody. It can happen to someone teeny like us. It can happen to massive brands. Like at the end of the day, it is a handmade product. Anything can be a lemon. You can buy a Lamborghini and it can fucking crap out in a day. Like that's just how it works. So the problem is not that I think they're having a bad batch. That's actually not the issue that I have. The issue I have is the borderline gaslighting that happened when the stylist came forward and said, I think something is wrong. And I don't have a problem with someone asking questions, but after you know, like, oh, you're using the right shampoo, conditioner, they're taking care of it, they're putting the oil, they have satin pillowcases, they're doing everything right, but then you still have the audacity to look that stylist in the face and say, it's not us, it's you. That is where I now have a problem.
For sure.
Look, anyone who has a hairline or thinks who wants one, you're going to have a bad batch at one point or another. Like, honestly, it's probably going to happen because the idea that you will never have anything go wrong is this fucking ridiculous. There's no way. So for me,
it's kind of like the same thing. I was saying this to someone else the other day. I think it was a client, and the toner, she's got over porous hair, and you can put, when you're dealing with porous hair or any hair, you can use that same color 3 times on the same hair, and you don't know what you're going to get. So when stylists are so judgmental with brands and with coloring, like the process, and they're not even color technicians that color it, like, and they're not even using hair color. Like I think at this point everyone knows that they're using fabric dye, as well. So there's so much of the back end, and then it's also it's like you said, it's not by robots. So many things that can affect color variation, such as the origin of the hair, the amount of hair per color. Like, now having your own color line, in order for us to have consistent colors, we as suppliers, we have to buy the hair in kilos in order to create the consistent or somewhat consistency in color. Do you know? Then weather, like, I don't know if you guys are aware, in China, there's always floods, and they're always having, which they don't even show on the news, but there's so many different factors. I know multiple times with our factory as well, if they keep the coloring out in the air because the factories are all open, over time, the coloring fades. So we've got to continuously always send out updated colorings so that they can check it off, because if it's out in the open, hair fades just as the coloring. So there's so many different factors that, come into fact with the color. But then, even from hearing from you lately, I think probably more so in America, and it's still happening here, but from what I know and from the girls that I've been speaking to, the quality has declined now for a while. Is that right?
Yeah. And that's what I keep hearing from people, is that brands that they have loved so dearly and have been really, really great to them, something is going wrong. And once again, the going wrong is not the issue for me. It's gonna happen. It's how the stylists are treated after. Like, damn, for me as a stylist who has had bad batches of hair, like I've used bad batches before, I know exactly the horror and the time that goes into fixing that. It is so fucking scary. Like, I absolutely understand that. But even inside of that, like, I don't want to gaslight someone. Like, I had someone actually, gosh, it's honestly only happened once with Mourning Hair, where she got a bunch of hair. One weft was weird. Honestly, I don't even know what happened with that weft. Her and I sat there looking at it, and she sent me a picture. She was like, hey, none of the other wefts did it, but that one did. And I went, yeah, that's weird. I'm like, do you want me to send you a replacement or do you want to choose a different color? She's like, replacement's great. I'm like, it's on its fucking way, girl. Like, it will be there tomorrow. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, well, what shampoo? I can look at it and say, yeah, that looks weird. And guess what?
Exactly.
Never happened again. It was
Exactly.
that one singular weird West. And I was like, whew, okay. And she was so nice about it. But I also recognized that I wasn't a dick about it either. I wasn't trying to put the blame on her. I would rather take responsibility and be like, yeah, that seems a little bit odd than to be like, I don't know what you did. Like, that's weird. Don't treat people that
Right.
way.
And we've been pretty lucky. Like in 6 years, I've only ever had to replace maybe four
Yeah.
wefts, four packs for clients
Yeah.
because, the crawling thing has happened maybe, like I said, 4 times. And it happens so small that in order to mitigate, the drama with her or whatever, I just replaced it. But if
Mm,
it happened consistently, as a brand, I feel like they need to take responsibility because
agree.
you know if it's happening. You're wearing the hair. And I think this is something that you taught me as well because I didn't know that this was happening. I knew this was happening in the factories, the ABC quality, but I didn't realize that brands were actually doing it because
Mm,
that's what makes it really shady. It makes sense with factories. If you're not, you got to put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to be ordering this much, you're not going to get good quality.
yeah.
If you're ordering consistently and you're ordering a lot, they're going to reward you by giving you the best quality as
Yeah.
well. But I didn't realize that brands were knowingly selling that and still charging. I think that's the point of contention is that they're still charging for lower grade hair and charging, what
The
they're
high grades.
for the higher grade hair, and that's not okay. It definitely, yeah, it definitely makes stylists lose trust in brands. Like that's not cool.
Yes, that's not fucking cool at all. So let me ask you this. What do you feel like you want to see change in the hair industry? Like, if there was, you know, we talk about a lot that fucking pisses us off, and we're obviously making those changes anyway.
Well, I think with the method, once you release what you're doing, I think that's going to be a massive change as well. But on the hair side, I just think also there needs to be a little bit of understanding on both parts. I feel like stylists need to come together with brands and communicate. I think that's
Yes.
the biggest thing is don't scream, don't yell, don't, because I see what's happening is like people are talking amongst themselves. This just happens in politics, in businesses, and in people. When you talk amongst yourselves and you're spreading rumors, and you're not giving the brand the opportunity to defend themselves or speak up, well, they might not even know about it if you're speaking to everyone else but the brand. And this is where toxic behavior or environment begins. So I feel like there needs to be an understanding and communicate. And like you say, what do they do if brands aren't taking ownership of it? Because I feel like that's the only other thing. They're like, I am telling them, but they're not listening. You know what I mean? So I think it just comes down to integrity. And I think it's also like you and I know now, working with our factory, is we weren't willing to compromise because we weren't willing to buy the cheaper hair in order to make this work, which is why what we're doing is a little bit different. But I think that's probably, because I say being transparent, but also there's a side that I don't understand brands who are also posting online and they're sharing to customers. Like customers can see how much they're purchasing or how much a stylist is purchasing the hair for. Like, I
Yeah.
don't like that. Is that happening in America?
I feel like most brands are pretty quiet about it. Like, you have to have an account, you have to be licensed.
Yeah.
There are some, I'm not gonna say cheaper brands, but yeah, there are some with probably lower quality that don't care and they're like, fuck it, anyone can buy it. But no, mine is under lock and key. Like, you have to be licensed to get it.
I
Mhm.
feel like just to alleviate the confusion, there has to be some sort of protection for that, transparent with other things. But I feel like clients shouldn't have access to hair because then they're already, it's giving them an advantage to be even more confused about what stylists are charging and why they're charging. Do you know what I mean? Because we all know
Yes.
stylists, the money's in the installation, money's not in the product. And this is something that we touched on last time in our podcast is the what's it called? Help me out here. On our end, the profit margins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Profit margin. Got it.
the profit margins isn't high with Hot Tools and with a raw product like ours. I think people think that brands are making the most money on hair, but they're actually not. The stylists are making the most money on the installation.
Mhm. And not to say that like stylists can't make great money on the hair. They absolutely can. Like we know the percentages that things are upcharged in the same that way that milk is upcharged and gas and everything else that we use. But I think people get but one of the reasons that like, because I obviously morning hair is sold individually, it's because I'm like, damn, I know what it's like to need 3 colors and only need one of one color. And sometimes that just sucks. Like it's hard for newer stylists, I feel, to really get in the game when they have to buy huge packs all the time and when the prices are outrageous. So I've only had one person upset that I sold it individually, and that was kind of funny.
Really?
Yes. Because I won't say publicly what my 18-inch weft costs, but if you go online as a stylist, you can see she bought a weft, which honestly has happened multiple times. So I don't even think it's weird when it happens. And then she sent me a very snarky email saying she thought she was buying a pack of hair for the price of one weft. And I was like, what kind of hair are you normally getting? Like,
Can I just say, I do feel like in America, you guys have overspoiled everyone. I feel like everyone's been a little bit overspoiled because there's so much oversaturation. And I'm a firm believer because you guys help me understand this as well. Like it's almost at the point also, and I know how scary it was in the beginning for both of us to make that jump where what's happening now, stylists aren't even wanting to invest in a hair library, but all of a sudden they want to invest in their own hair company.
yeah, that is. And you know what? I actually had someone DM me. Oh my God, it had to be yesterday, literally. And she was like, hey, I have a question. Like, how do I find a factory? I want my own hairline. And I'm like, baby girl, I'm gonna tell you that you got to know someone who's willing to tell you. Like, that's how I have mine. I said, but I'm gonna tell you the reality of the situation. If you are not willing to invest over 6 figures every 6 weeks, 6 weeks, guys, because that keeps you your own factory with your own team and everybody's happy, don't do it. Your quality will go down. You are not going to be happy. And I don't think people understand that. So I don't say it to scare people to be like, haha, less competition.
100%. It's true.
You, but also recognize the reality of what it costs and what it takes because it's fucking scary.
It's so scary. It's so true. And I think I've had messages from people like you from America saying, I've worked with this brand. I think they're going to solve the problem by having their own brand, but it really, and like we say, we're very lucky because we've been put in a position. The person that's helped us, our associate, is really off the grid. Our factory is off the grid, and let's maybe speak about a little bit about why the factories are so sacred and why they're so secretive.
Yeah,
because a lot of the factories in even in China, when we first started, you're like, when can we go see the factory? And I was like,
I'm like, can we go? I want to go.
I was like, fuck, I don't even have an invitation to go because our factory is off the grid. They're the main hair collectors. They're one of the few main hair collectors in China. So they don't even want people to know where they are. So they're not even posting that they're, there's a couple of videos now you see people going to China and you see factories and they're still not showing a proprietary process. They might show how they disinfect the hair, but they're still not going to show people how they color it. It's a proprietary process. There's also, why are we not seeing brands in fashion? They don't show where their factories are. So everyone's saying hair is unregulated, but I feel like fashion is unregulated. You look at Gucci, for example, like they're not screaming, oh, people are copying me. They can't even stop that, and they're freaking Gucci. They know that it happens. And in China, I honestly believe when we first came out on the scene, our associate was one of the first ones to come up with the microtide or the genius wefts. And we even thought about trying to patent it and do a trademark on it. But the reality is you can't because in China, there's no laws around it. They can just recreate something. You can maybe, as you're going through a trademark your branding and your name. But when it comes to recreating it in China, they'll just pop up. The factories are popping up left, right, and center. And the funny thing is as well, before we ended up finding the person who ended up helping us, I was sending Vlad over to China thinking, I'm going to find the factory. It's going to be that easy. And here I am messaging people on Alibaba, like I'm sure a lot of other people do. And Vlad was going in to meet people. And there's different levels with factories. There's different layers. So all these people that are messaging people on Instagram are like, I'm with this factory. They make it sound like they're part of the factory. And Vlad was going to meet these people and was meeting them in the back of an alley. Like he wasn't even getting close. He only got to one factory, and even when he got there, he was like, "Holy fuck!" Like just it's almost like I hate to say it, but there's no regulations on it. Vlad's brother also had manufacturing in China as well, and he worked in the factory. It was his own product. He was just making moldings and stuff like that. But he would literally go outside for a cigarette, come back, and the workers would fuck up the whole assembly line of the pallets of whatever he was. That's how unregulated it is. Like I hate
Yeah.
to say it, but there's no. You can pay people to have um, quality control, but there really is no quality control. That's why it's so secretive because
Yeah.
we as partners to factories don't even have control or access to it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's no secret to it. But the reality is it's whoever's got the deepest pockets is going to get the best quality hair, and it's also what how consistent you're willing to be with it.
Yeah. And that
So,
is, I mean, it is very, very scary. And that's why I tell people, I don't tell them the reality of what it is to have a hairline to dissuade them. But I'm like, you need to know what you're going into. Because when I tell people, I'm like, guys, we're talking, it's an invoice for 6 figures about every 6 weeks. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you don't understand. It is, I honestly, I don't think I've ever gotten an invoice and not cried at least once. Every
right.
time I see the little email come up, invoice, I'm like, no, not again.
It's so true. And someone like myself, who I have a few checkpoints. So my hair goes from China to America and then to here. So people are like, "Oh my God, your hair's so expensive." And I'm like, little alone do people know, even with COVID, shipping alone from China to America went up 3 times and it still has never gone back down. So I
Mhm.
think I think what's also happening is kind of like what happens in, when you work for someone, you work for a company, and you're like mad at them because you don't see the back end of what they're going through. Like stylists have beef with salon owners, and they only realize it when they go try to open up their own business, and they're like, maybe they didn't do wrong by me. Maybe there's a whole, behind the scenes with expenses and taxes, and we call it superannuation here. You guys call it the what is it, 40k,
Forward pay. Mhm.
401k. Like we have to pay 11% on people's wages. Like if
Wow.
I have 8 9 staff, so I have to come up with $120,000 a year just in super, and people don't see the behind the scenes. Then you add company tax, then you add all the taxes between shipping and customs, and oh my god, like I think once people realize that, they would honestly, and maybe that's a transparency that we have to speak about as brands or as
Yeah.
business owners. I don't know. It's the boring side of what we do, but it's
It's
the reality of what we do. And I don't think what I was saying is until someone tries to tackle that side, they're never going to appreciate it. They're never going to respect it, and they're
no.
never going to understand it.
No, because even me, when I started morning hair and I was like, oh, I need boxes. Oh, because I'm doing individual, I need primary packaging and secondary packaging. Oh, I need a printer for printing shipping labels. Oh, the printer is like $300. That's fucking cool. Okay, now we need tags. Now we need that. Like, it's so, I,
And now you told me the other day you're doing a trademark, and I actually asked my husband Vlad, who's in business with me. I was like, "How much did we pay for trademarks?" And he's like, 15,000.
what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah, all up because we had to, depending on what countries you want to be in. Do you want to trademark in one country? Do you want it in specific countries? Because what happens as well with a trademark when you initially start, it's like 1,500, and then you're in, and it's like they rebut it. Then you have to submit more information. I know. I don't think yours is going to be. I don't want to scare you again. I don't want to scare
It's
you again.
fine. I'll cry after the podcast.
This is part of business that people don't understand, So when you start something, and this is a part of even litigation, of when you see people getting into, it becomes a pride case because it's like you
Yeah.
did me wrong, and you're like, I think people just want to be right, it's on principle,
It's
I
human.
want to. But then
Yeah.
the only people that are benefiting are honestly the what are they called? Solicitors. What do you call them over there? Attorneys. We
Yeah.
call them lawyers here. Do you know what I mean? So the only people that are benefiting are the lawyers because you got an axe to grind. They love people with an axe to grind.
And you know what? It's so funny because I feel like when brands, because I'm always torn between like, if you genuinely came up with something, like if you were truly person number one, then in my mind, yeah, that does belong to you.
For
But if
sure. Or
you,
someone worked for your company and was, stealing money right under your nose and stole 40,000 or 20, whatever it was. There's
yeah,
obviously merits for that, comes to.
yeah. But like what I'm thinking is like when these brands and like that here, like at least in America, when all of a sudden they start sending out cease and desist for a fucking Instagram post, do you think that makes you look good? Do you
Mm,
think people are not going to find out? Do you think that people are going to hear that and then
yeah.
they're going to want to come to your class because they're not? So now you think you're protecting your business, and what you're doing is you're tearing it to the ground with pure fucking fear.
Let me just add some perspective on that, because I know when I first started, like I said, it's the reasons why they do it is around fear based. And I know I was in the beginning, because what happens, whether you're building, a brand with extensions, you've obviously known it's 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures. We had to take out a loan for 300,000-400,000 when we first started. So imagine the feeling when you're protecting that investment and you can make an emotional decision. Lucky you and I don't act on emotion. I have in the beginning maybe made irrational thought, because you're like, fuck, this is an investment, I need to protect it. And this is where it goes wrong, because then also methods, or individual, it doesn't matter whether it's a method or whatever, they're still building a business around it, and they've obviously invested money behind it.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it gets convoluted, and what people don't see is that they're just trying to protect their investment.
Mhm.
Do you know? But where do you draw the line where it becomes aggressive? And well, I actually want to ask you, because how you said, what do you think needs to change? And this is where I honestly believe, if you just, everyone stays in their lane and just do the best that you can, just show up the best for your customers, for yourself. That's all that we can do, and give people free will to do whatever the hell they like. But in
Yeah.
saying that, what's your answer to that question?
To me, I think it bare minimum, right? Let's say we're talking something easy to change. For the love of God, let people market themselves how they want.
Mm,
Because someone posting one bead from your method or 2 stitches from your method, I promise you, no one's gonna figure it out and all of a sudden like trash your name. Because if you are letting people market themselves the way they want, they're actually marketing your brand. They're gonna say, "Oh, I'm using Yovanka's, I'm using Lori, I'm using whatever." They are actually just doing free marketing for you, as opposed to if you're limiting what they can post, you're sending cease and desist, or you're sending those mean ass fucking messages or emails saying, "I saw what you posted and you need to take it down." That's ruining your reputation. People aren't going to come to you.
and
So
it's
to
going
me,
to want to stop you supporting that brand ultimately anyway. So where
yes,
how is that going to benefit of what you're actually trying to do in the first place?
yes. So to me, it's if you want to protect your brand in the term of, Yovanka, thank you for learning my extension method. I would prefer you not teach it just so it doesn't get diluted. I can
Nothing.
understand that.
And
That
this,
makes sense. But to then say, don't post all of these things, or if someone tries to watch you in the salon, don't let them. Like, how the wait,
mm.
she works beside me 3 feet away. What am I supposed look away? Like that to me, where it starts getting crazy. Yeah, like that to me is at bare minimum. I think that needs to change.
Mm.
And I think that is a very easy change. It doesn't affect anybody, but it's definitely like that to me is what's going to bare minimum. And then I'll say one more thing. If you're hiding something in your company, I don't care if you're a method or if you're a hairline, you need to stop. I always say, if you're purposefully not talking about something or purposefully not telling the truth or doing a half truth, you shouldn't be doing the thing you're hiding. And that can go across the board into anyone's life. That's fine. But like,
But under the rug, it's going to come out.
it's always going to come out. I would rather someone call me up and say, "Hey, I was a dick and I'm sorry. I talked shit on you and I'm sorry I did that." I'd be like, at least you're honest. Like, I mean, hey, okay. It is what it is.
I listened to the wrong person. I'm so sorry. I didn't
And
figure it out for myself.
yep. And things like that are okay. Mistakes happen. You can like one brand and hate another. But to me, it's just kind of give people like the autonomy to just like at least market their business how they want, because they paid you to learn that thing. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? And I think that at bare minimum, that has to change. This is getting crazy. And I can't think of a single brand that was so innovative that I'd never seen before. It,
Mm.
it all comes from somewhere. So like, Also, calm down. You didn't come up with it anyway. Stop screaming and yelling. And I feel like I know I'm probably between us. I'm probably the more aggressive one because I will boldly say these things. And it's honestly just because so many people are in my DMs every single day saying, I wish I could talk about X, or I wish I could show X, or I was so proud of the work I did, but I can't post it. And that's ridiculous. So I
Mm,
paid you to learn something. I did the work and I still can't post about it because you don't like it. No.
mm. It's such a fine line, isn't it? It's taking away, we're such big advocates for artists, but then you're taking away what artists are actually
Art.
capable of doing. You're taking away the art. So
Yes.
that definitely needs to change. Well, and we said this as well the other day, like, why can't it be like the color industry? Like, you go to a color class. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always
Yeah.
been, no one's ever slapped any NDAs on people. It's like, you go learn it. Whatever someone wants to choose or chooses to do with it, it's on them. No one's got your mind. No one's got your marketing. No one's
Yes.
going to recreate the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
it just needs to go back. It really needs to go back to when, we used to go to a color class and there was no politics, and everyone
It's
shared and everyone went off
fun.
and did their thing and recreated it. So that
Do you
definitely.
do you know who started highlighting with foils first?
No. Is that a trick
Well,
question?
yeah, because you know what? Me fucking either, and no one has a goddamn patent on it, but everybody does it. Even just
Exactly.
like recently, like I know that air touch is a method of coloring hair. But
Mm.
I just did a whole reel. I'm like, did you know you can air touch extensions? That's a thing that can happen. I'm going to do a whole series on the fact that you can absolutely do this. I can guarantee you air touch is not going to come yell and scream and be like, how fucking dare you? Because at the end of the day, I'm still promoting their brand. And there are so many air touch educators out there, and they are amazing and wonderful. And watching them work is literally like magic. It is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
And I've never even seen, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Air touch?
Hair touch. What is that?
It's so you literally you take a thin slice of hair. So we're gonna do this on my blonde side next week. So instead of like normal highlighting, right, where it's you're gonna have lines eventually, you take a thin slice of hair,
Hmm?
you hold it about down here, you take a blow dryer and it pushes down any little hairs, and then those little hairs are what you end up low lighting, and then you're coloring the rest blonde.
Oh,
It is out. I will send you some. It is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen.
I've heard of it. There you go.
I'm literally driving an hour and a half next week to go get my hair done because I want this particular method of coloring. I
Mm.
want this.
And then someone's going to come out and say, bitch, that's baby lights. It's not air touch.
Oh my fucking god. So I swear to God. Yeah, no, this girl is like, she's so good. But like I sought that out because I specifically wanted it. But like
Mm.
I'm telling you, when I show people how to air touch wefts, no one from air touch is gonna come yell at me. And if they do, honestly, I'll be shocked and I'll probably laugh at it. But like, okay, joke's on me then, I guess.
You're ready for it. You never know. No, hopefully they won't. But that sounds interesting. You have to send me some stuff. But I'm super excited. You're coming down to Australia in a few weeks. How many weeks are you?
I am screaming, crying, throwing up.
4 weeks. And this is something that, we've been working towards together for a while. So you're coming down with Sarah. Grayson was supposed to come along, but he no longer is able to come along. So it's just my team, a few of my team members. You're
It's a
doing,
girls' trip.
you're going to be doing your thing with social media and your weft coloring. And then Sarah also is going to be doing her blend cutting. And this
Yeah.
is something that we're also eventually going to be doing in the States as well. And who knows where else? Who knows
Yeah.
where
We're starting off in Melbourne and then we're going to Gold Coast. This is literally like a dream come true. So let me just say, first off, thank you so much for even inviting us, because when you were like,
else?
hey, I'm like, this is a dream. Going to Australia, I'm sure for you,
You're really coming for the animals. You're really coming partly for the animals, and it's fun. I can accept that. For the
like,
koalas,
I love you and I love Vlad and I'm coming for this.
I'm
But
not
I
even
mean,
affected by it.
oh yeah, I mean, am I gonna feed a capybara when I get to Gold Coast? Yes, I am. I'm ready for this. But literally going to Australia is a dream. Like we were considering doing Australia for our honeymoon. I'm like, sorry, I'm going first. So
What
oopsies.
better way to have your dream and a bit of hair on the side and share what we love doing? It's a perfect match.
Yeah, this class is going to be great. We're going to have extension methods. We're going to have coloring on clients' hair. We're going to have coloring lefts. We're going to have cutting. We're going to have
Curly
it's
hair, curly
every
hair, everything. It's
every
everything.
Yes.
Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I'm sure we even said if this, if we have to do a part two on this, because there's probably things that we've missed out on.
Yes. That's
Um,
okay. But
maybe next time we could have like a Q and A. Maybe we can do a live on one of our lives and see if there's a Q and A and really just be put on the spot and maybe answer some questions. We
I
can
love that. I actually love being put on the spot. It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's kind of fun. But thank
exactly.
you so much for being here with me today. I know it's very early for you in the morning.
I'm up early. I'm ready like you at 4:30 a.m.
Yovanka is 16 and a half hours ahead of me. So if I count back 8.5 hours, that's her timing. And there are some days it's like 8 a.m. for me, and we're WhatsApping, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, why the fuck are you? Go to bed. Go to sleep, lady.
My sleep is all over the place. I sleep 5 hours and I'm done. It's sick. But I
You're
don't know. That's the way I function.
You're crazy, but I love it. So, guys, I'm gonna put all of Ivanka's information below. Take a look at her Instagram, and if you are someone who loves Genius Wefts, I
Mm.
can personally attest for the quality of her hair because it is the same quality of my hair. We just have different types. And I will also say, if you're looking for curly or beach wavy, Ivanka's your girl. She's been crushing it. I've seen the work, and it is absolutely
Thank you.
beautiful.
I appreciate the support. And like I said, Arnie and I always work with us. Don't scream at us. Do not scream at us. Give us feedback in the right way, and we'll always have your back. But thank you. I really, really appreciate it. It's funny how it's all come full circle. I just can't wait to squish you and hug you. And last time I saw you, I was like, you're so little, but you're so loud.
And first time I met Yovanka, she was reading something on a website and she said, "G'day." And I go, "G'day, mate." And I was like, oh, I was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm not mocking you. I
Well,
love
don't
your
worry, I'll do the same thing. Oh my God. Well, we can't wait to have you here. I'll get the koalas ready for you. But thank you. I hope everyone got something out of this, and I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more together. And we cannot wait to also one more week, and Annie's going to release something special and exciting for everyone. So
very exciting." So, guys, thank you for being here for another episode of Mourning Tea. And as I always say, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have concerns, shoot us both a DM. Shoot me a DM. I answer to literally everyone every single time. So, love you guys so much. Thanks for being here.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.